All right, we've got the puppy joining us in the video here. You saw in the opening segment the chair that we started with, which is a typical old needlepoint covered chair. But it's got great bones. It's got a great basic look to it. And so we're going to make it a little bit more modern. You see from this picture that I have done a couple of things to the chair already. I have removed the original needlepoint cover. And I did that prior to painting. It's not difficult, it's just really picky because it requires you to be pulling out some pretty long staples, often with the upholstery staples and tacks. But pulling it out carefully, I wanted to preserve the needlepoint, not because I'm in love with it, but because I wanted to use it as a template for my fabric. What I have also done is I've gone ahead and painted the wood. So much easier to do this once all the fabric is off and before I put on the new fabric so that there's no problem with getting paint all over that. What I have painted it in is a bright pink, which is Kissing Booth from DIY, clay-based paint. And a couple of coats of that. I have clear waxed it, I have white waxed it to highlight the details. And I picked pink very strategically because it is going to go great with this nice, bright, fun fabric that I have selected. So the next step is that we are going to use the needlepoint fabric that we took off as a template for cutting out this. This has a right way and a wrong way, meaning the flowers are going to go up or they're going to go down. I want them to go up. So when I lay my needlepoint on top of it, that's one of the things that I want to take into consideration. All right, I've turned you around so that you can see what I'm up to on the cutting board here. And what I'm planning on, this will be the back edge of my chair. So you can see then all the flowers and the palms kind of fold down toward what will be the front of the chair. And so when I lay out my template, which was the original seat cushion, I want it to sit the same way. These are where those back chair legs, the back of the chair goes. So this is the back of my fabric. And ultimately, this is the front. So all I'm going to do is I am going to cut out around this template. Now, because this is a very thick fabric, right? Because it's got all the mesh that you needle pointed through and then all of the thread. And this is a finer fabric. I'm going to cut out a little bit wider so that I can actually fold the fabric back in and have a little bit more strength and durability to it. When we do our staples, we're actually going to be covering them afterward with a little bit of a trim, but we still want to have a little bit of a neat surface, all right? So I'm going to actually just move this so that it's more toward the edges, get good use of the fabric and not using more of it than I need. And at this point, all that we're gonna do is cut it out. So before we start any nailing, we want to layer fabric out, kind of get a feel for how it's going to work and fit on our piece. Make sure that you've got it lined up properly. When it comes to working these corners, one of the things that we'll be doing is rotating and folding the fabric in against itself, and then ultimately pushing this out of the way and moving it down into that crevice. This isn't an area where we're going to be able to staple, but the other staples will hold it in place around that segment, okay? So one of the things as we're lining up our fabric we want to do is to be able to go and get some of that done ahead of time so that they're all tucked and we can ensure that our fabric is going to lie flat against those. All right, now that we've roughly fit our fabric around these edges, this is going to be the tricky spot, so we leave this for the last. We want to at least get our fabric anchored, and here we want to do it front to back, back to front, either way, it doesn't matter. So we're at least going to have this nice and taut, pulled tight, so that we can then get the sides working against each other. So we're going to take our staple gun and we're just going to fold that fabric underneath, and we're going to staple this as close to the edge as we can. That was an awkward way. There we go. And get this, just a couple of spots along. Creating that fold as we go. And let me just do a couple more on this side. There we go. So we've got that nice tight edge in here, and we want to flip it around and do the same thing on the reverse side. Here again, we want to create that fold, pull it as taut as we can. Do too many on the back because I want to be able to flex around those edges here. There we go. As you're working on some of the corners, just focus on one side at a time. If you've got this down far enough, and that's the part that you want to make sure is that up on the top, you can get pulled tight enough, right, that it's going to be nice and smooth on the top. Then it's a question of starting to futz around with these little corners. And here you're going to be folding fabric up and in, making sure that you've got a nice, neat little tuck, taking the fabric up and over so that when you do your staple, right, that you've got a decent little corner. And then working on the other side, doing the same thing. You may find in some spots that you've got a little bit too much fabric to be able to tuck it away nicely and neatly, in which case, trim it away. So that you can get your edging going. Now, awkward spot for me. Just want to get rid of a bit of this in here. across. Now I don't need these two spots to join perfectly. You can see where I'm going to be about a ½ inch short here. That's okay because we are going to be putting trim over top of this, and that trim is going to come right along there. So it will create the continuation that we're looking for. So for this corner, staple that in tight first, and then we can do a mini tuck along the way. Once you have your corners done, go back and anchor them in a little bit better because that's where your biggest pull is going to be. And making sure that they're all nice and tight will serve you well. And then repeat on the other side. And the last step in our process, we are going to be applying some decorative trim to our chair. We're going to be taking this all the way around the chair, stopping here. This is not going to be a natural place for it to go. And I'm going to be attaching that with hot glue. Now you could do upholstery tacks if you would like around there. I didn't want the look of the tack. I thought this looked a little bit more feminine, kind of in keeping with the pink and the white to complement the white wax. So to do this, and safeguarding your fingers as much as you can, we're going to be taking our hot glue and just beading it along. And again, I like to do just a little bit at a time so that the hot glue isn't going to be freezing up on me, and so that I have a chance to really be able to press it in. And this is what's going to cover all of our staples. Okay, and you gotta be careful with the hot glue because it is gonna leak through. I always end up with these millions of threads, but it is gonna leak through a little bit here. And you don't want it to leak through onto your fingers. And I just like to let a certain amount of it firm up before I carry on. Just because then I don't have to worry about it falling off. Okay? And you can see how that already just kind of finishes the edge as we're going, right? So we're just going to carry this all the way around and then we're done.